Hola, hola, amigas. Welcome to another episode of Modern Latina in Midlife. This is an episode that is very interesting. We're talking about hormonal changes and thyroid issues as well, and how they sometimes correlate together. And joining me today is Poornima Vamsi. She's here to talk to us about natural ways to be able to balance our hormones, relieve the symptoms that we're experiencing through hormonal imbalances and changes in general, in this perimenopausal and menopause period, because she made a very good point in this conversation that we just had, is that I'm sharing with you here, that we're experiencing hormonal changes. It doesn't necessarily mean they're imbalances. However, when we start experiencing things like night sweats or hot flashes, those do fall under the realm of imbalances. And oftentimes, the very first thing that our doctors want to do, of course, as with anything else, is to put us on a pill. And yes, sometimes that's necessary, especially to kind of help us get under control. But Purnima has a different way of viewing and seeing things that I'm completely on board with. To share a little bit about where Purnima came from, she struggled with thyroid for 5 years, taking medication every single day, as most of us do, on an empty stomach, and then having to wait 30 minutes before you can eat or drink anything. And this is something that I do and I've been doing for the last 20 years. It just drives me insane. But this is how my morning is every single day. She's also gone through postpartum depression, plantar fasciitis, and some other issues, taking steroids to reduce the pain, and was frustrated living a life uh, where where she was also weighing over 180 pounds, what she should be weighing, or where she felt comfortable. She knew that there was another way out. Her turning point was majorly when her own mother was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, was overweight and bedridden. It was then that she started to study and research and get certified and implementing her learnings to reverse her own hormonal imbalances, which allowed her to get off of thyroid medication, stop taking the steroids, reduce some of her symptoms and conditions, and dropped 30 kilograms. So you do the math. It's about 60, 70 pounds. It is her mission that every woman deserves to live life medication free so that she can do more for herself and for her loved ones. And I love that quote so much. That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm about empowering women to be able to do the things that they love and to feel fulfilled so that they can do more for the people that they really care about, the people around them. So without further ado, let's welcome Poornima Vamsi to the podcast. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Welcome to the podcast, Poornima. Thank you so much for being here, for giving us your time today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Sonia, for having me here. We are poles apart in terms of time zones, but I'm so glad we have been able to come on a common platform. And thank you so much for having me on your podcast today.
Of course, you're very welcome. I'm glad that we could find a time that works for both of us. So I appreciate that. So today we're here to talk about hormonal imbalances primarily, which is a hot topic about amongst my friends and I. We're all around the 50-ish year age, and where we're starting to like find that there's something different happening to us that nobody prepared us for. So I thought it was important to bring somebody on who knows a lot about this topic, and I found you. So I'm glad that you're here today. So I'll go ahead and start right off with, if you could share with us why hormonal imbalances happen.
Before I get into it, I love the word that you use, which no one prepared us for, because I'm going to talk about that as we dive into our podcast journey. So, why hormonal imbalances happen? As women, we are beautifully blessed with a body that has several hormones. And for layperson's terminology, hormones is nothing but chemical fertilizers running in our bloodstream. Now, as women, again, there are several phases of our life where we see a balance and an imbalance in hormone. It can be as early as from when we are in our mother's womb, from when we start, getting really, studies have shown that, we have estrogen and all, I mean, from then on in our body, even though our presence into the physical world has not happened yet.
Mm.
That said, through several phases of life, starting from puberty to marriage, to childbirth, to perimenopause, to menopause, these are
Mhm.
all the natural ways where hormonal changes happen in the body. Now, when those hormonal changes happen, with all that we put ourselves into, and I will get into it what I mean, there can be an imbalance. And what I actually meant in putting ourselves into is one, not being truly prepared, which is something you spoke at the beginning.
Mhm.
Two, the way our day to day life puts us into the stress zone. So that can lead into unknown hormonal imbalances, while these are the actual phases of life where we have those hormonal shifts happening in our body every
Mhm.
now and then.
Mhm. Okay, so there's so much information here to unpack. So we know that there's natural times in our lives when it's expected to have the hormonal imbalances, like like puberty and
Yeah,
childbirth, and
yeah.
so but you're saying that there's, in addition to that, there's the other stressors. Okay, so stress obviously being one of them, I'm guessing. So
Yes.
okay, so what are some ways to approach these imbalances to start treating them, specifically as it relates to midlife, since this is kind of like my audience, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What are, I guess, some of the common ways in which a woman in midlife suffers when their hormones are not imbalanced? Like, what would be some of those signs and symptoms?
Yes. So, very common symptoms that we see, especially in midlife, is night sweats that we wake up to unknowingly. The weather is beautiful out there. Everyone else is rugged up. And then we are like, oh my God, I'm sweating for no
Mhm.
reason. So, the
Mhm.
night sweats are one of the most common things that I have seen several women go through. While I personally haven't, I have
Mhm.
seen other women go through. The second is the crazy mood swings that happen,
Mm.
where we don't know, we are happy one moment and the other moment we're like, I don't know what's happening with me. So that's something which can be noticed as well. And then of course the perimenopause, where the periods by itself start to, the number of days that we would have, usually if it's 3 to 5 or 5 to 7 days, we would start to see the decrease in the period flow. We would also start to see the number of days, if it was 28 to 35, which usually is, there is a longer gap in the cycle. So
Mhm.
that's also a way that we could understand. And unknown weight gain around midsection, especially in and around tummy, thighs, and butts, where we start to see, oh, I've started to put flab all of a sudden over here.
Mhm.
Enlargement of breasts is also a way where we know that there are shifts
Hmm.
happening during midlife, and that's also a symptom of hormonal changes happening. I would not necessarily call it as hormonal imbalance, but I would call it as hormonal changes happening in the body.
Hmm.
And these are the common ways that I would say, that
Mhm.
many of them that I have spoken to, worked with, have noticed, seen as a shift in their body.
Mhm.
And it is very important that we are aware of this being hormonal changes. We all probably, as an umbrella view, know that, okay, I'm approaching my 50s, which means I should be mentally prepared for perimenopause or menopause. These days, with the kind of lifestyle that we are having, I know women in their 38s and 42s who are already going through perimenopause and menopausal symptoms. Not like how my mom had her periods even probably when she was 58, 59, right?
Mhm.
It's not like that any longer, given the lifestyle we are
Mhm.
into. But it's very important, going back to what I said, it's very important that we have that awareness. I think that's the first step.
Mhm.
And that awareness comes from educating ourselves. Yes, we were not taught about this in schools, in colleges, in unis, etc. But we
Mhm.
do have a plethora of resources
Mhm.
which we can use to educate ourselves, to create that self awareness of, okay, this is what I'm going through. And now that I'm going through this, yes, the most common thing that we would do is reach out to GPs, because I think that's the best place to get started too, to understand that these are the symptoms that I'm having, and the GP would obviously probably say, yes, you are in this age group, so it's natural for your body to have those hormonal changes. But while they say, they might put us on a sort of a medication to ease us of the symptoms, etc. I personally feel, and I have noticed this in several other symptoms that I have gone through personally, and as well that which my clients have gone through, that having that awareness, educating ourselves, and then knowing what it is that we could do for ourselves to ease those symptoms with natural holistic methods and techniques will play hand in hand with what the GP has diagnosed, what medication we are put into. And then if we are in a place where we are able to, then there are chances that we could actually pull ourselves off the external medication and then work with our internal body.
Okay, that's really great. Lots of great information there. So much to unpack. Okay, so they're not necessarily hormonal imbalances. Am I hearing you correctly? It's more of a hormonal change.
Yes, let's call it hormonal changes. Not every change needs to be an imbalance, isn't
Mhm.
it? There are natural changes that are happening, which will happen through a woman's life. Now, if there is an imbalance, so if the night sweat starts and we know, okay, the night sweat has started, I'll see if let me create awareness, let me learn, educate. Am I able to do something? No, the best way is to go to GP, that we go to GP. GP says, practice, make some lifestyle changes, make some lifestyle shifts, get into light exercises, do. If you're able to do them, and then bring in a control, excellent, it's a normal change. But when that leads to anxiety, when that leads to further stress in the body, in terms of, oh my god, this is happening to me, this is happening to me, I'm not able to rest through the night, I have been having sleepless nights for quite some time, no matter what I do, it's not working, then the imbalance thing comes in.
Okay. So, yeah, because the first thing that I was told when I went to my doctor was, he tried to put me on different types of hormones. It was like, first it was progesterone, and that I didn't feel that was doing anything to me. And then it was estrogen, and I just really didn't feel like that was doing anything, or at least not enough. And I was one who's experienced night sweats. And when I shared that with my friends, they're like, no, they're having hot flashes. And I'm like, I'm having the night sweats over here. But none of the progesterone and estrogen alleviated any of that for me. And then I did a round of, bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. That didn't do anything for me. So I'm curious to hear what some of these things are that can be done naturally, because I would love to explore what those things are without having to use medication. But before we get into that, I have one question, because I'm finding that several of my friends fall under this category where we have thyroid issues, mostly hypothyroid and Hashimoto's. But I know that there's also hyperthyroid and Graves. And I know, because I saw this in your literature, something about, knowing a lot about thyroid as well. So I thought it would be a good place to bring it in. Do thyroid issues play a role in this hormone imbalance or change?
Okay, so we have two sets of things. I'm going to address the second part first, and we will talk about the other one with respect to night sweats and if going off medication, how can that be done? So now with respect to thyroid is one of the symptoms that comes in the blood report where the TSH is either high or TSH is lower than the normal parameter that it should be, right? Likewise, the T3, T4 numbers, and then how it gets into Hashimoto's or how it gets into Graves' disease, etc. Now, thyroid is one aspect. Thyroid is something that I have gone through personally, with my TSH being high, with me being on medication for 5 long years, struggling to understand how thyroid actually came. Was it genetics? Because in genetics, it doesn't exist in our entire family. Then if it is not genetics, how it came into my body, etc. Now, if I have to talk a little bit about my story and then get into the question that you have asked, what I have understood through the years of research analysis that I have done with thyroid, because that's personally something I have gone through, is any disease in that body, in the body for that matter, Sonia, is a manifestation of what thoughts we are going through, how those thoughts becomes into our emotions, what does emotions do to put us into certain habits, how those habits actually allows us to get into certain behavioral patterns. And then the medical reports speaks about, depending on where it goes and sits in the body as a manifestation, the medical reports would speak about if it is a thyroid, or if it is a diabetes, or if it is a PCOD, PCOS. Now, I'm a huge follower of one of the, I would say call him as my mentor. He's called Luke Coutinho. So he speaks heavily about energy, language of energy. While people who are not aware of the language of energy might find this woo-woo, but energy is something that we all know exists. As kids, we have studied about energy in our schools, etc. And today, between you and me, while we are sitting in different places, we are exchanging that energy, right? So that way, why I went into that is any disease, I come back to saying where any disease is a manifestation of our thoughts, actions, behaviors, emotions, etc. So with what we go through for years together, and since we are not taught about how we should be observing our thoughts, emotions, actions, habits, behaviors, we end up putting ourselves in a place physically in our body, that part, especially for women, it is either the womb area or it is the throat area where the thyroid gland exists, or where the PCOD, PCOS cysts form, or the diabetes happens, that it gets manifested over there. Now, I'm speaking from my own research from neuro language patterns and the certification that I have done being a practitioner in energetic breakthrough method. So to your question of if thyroid is a reason for hormonal imbalance, yes. Well, that is how it comes in the medical report, that the TSH numbers has shot up. But why does that happen? It happens because of what we have had over the years that we have carried in the form of stressful things that we have gone through, the trauma that we have experienced, the triggers that we have had through the course of years that we have been from child to puberty to early adulthood, etc. And that which goes and sits in that particular space of our energetic chakra in the body, meaning the attention over there needs to be given. It's lacking that attention. So in simple words, if I have to put myself, for me, my thyroid, while it was diagnosed in my second pregnancy, that's when the reports came out, because that's when we do blood tests. We don't keep going and doing blood tests every now and then if there are no issues, isn't it? So while it was a good news that I was pregnant, it was also a news to me that my thyroid levels were pretty high. And if I had to have my fear test in, I had to be on the dosage that the doctor had suggested. So no doubt I had to take it for me to continue my pregnancy, and I did that. But with my study and research, what I understood was when I went back to 2015, when I was diagnosed with thyroid, it's because one, at that point in time, there was a HR case that was registered or that was put on me by my colleague, given that there was some reasons which she felt that, was being more supported by my management than her. So that was one of the major triggers, stressful triggers for me, which had put me into this little court trial of being questions and answering them, etc. That's first trigger for me. Trigger number two, I was also studying for a major certification. It's called PMP, Project Management Professional Certification, which usually people say it takes usually 6 months to study and then pass the test, versus I had given myself a challenge of 33 days, and I actually was studying at that point in time to complete it. Yes, I passed through it, but the trigger number two for stress is something that I'm bringing up as a topic, because this will allow all the women who are listening to us today to go back and identify. If it's a decade ago that I had been recognized with thyroid, then it will allow them to go back and identify what is it that I was going through then. And I can vouch 100%, every woman that I have spoken to have told me that there has been some trigger, some trauma, some shock that they have experienced, which has triggered their thyroid, diabetes, PCOD, PCOS, etc. So trigger number two, and then trigger number three, my house was being renovated. You see how everything played stressful triggers. And
Mhm.
with we being women, we are told that we can do it all, we can
Right.
manage it all. And I told myself that I can do it all, I can manage it all. I had another 3-year-old child with me as well. So that landed up in my thyroid gland being triggered, giving rise to TSH numbers rather than my second pregnancy. Now, when
Mhm.
I understood that concept literally, it
Mhm.
took me 21 days to come off the medication, but it took 5 years to understand that.
Wow, that's really amazing. And that's interesting because I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's and or with thyroid after my second pregnancy as well. So I'm interested to sit back after our interview and go into retrospect as to what happened leading up to that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And I love that you're bringing the whole energetics into this because I am a big proponent of energy work. In fact, I am certified in energy work. So I'm super excited to hear what more you have to say about this. So is thyroid then genetic or is it just something that we learn as a pattern from our parents? Because I have
Yeah.
one parent that has a thyroid or had a
Yeah.
thyroid issue. My dad did. He's passed away
Okay.
now, but
All right, thyroid, anything, not just thyroid. We are speaking about thyroid because both of us have had that as a common experience.
right,
I
right.
know women talk about diabetes. My mom has diabetes, or I got diabetes. They say I got diabetes during my second pregnancy, and hence I'm prone to diabetes at a later part of my life, etc. Right. Talking about genetics, yes, genetics play a role, but a very minimal role. It probably plays, if you ask me in terms of number, again, going back to how studies have proven, it probably plays nothing more than a 2% role for the other person. It's not a family hereditary that we have to carry, isn't it? So it
Mm-hmm,
plays 2% role, but we have been fed time and
mm-hmm,
again so many times that if someone in the family has thyroid, someone in the family has diabetes, then you will have it too. It's just like, someone in the family has a bald head, you will have it too.
mm-hmm,
Like my husband, my father-in-law had thick and bushy hair, but my husband seems to be losing it all for
mm-hmm,
no reason.
mm-hmm,
When I say no reason, not because it's not genetics. So there has to be other reasons that we have to identify of why it's happening. So likewise, it's not a family, a hereditary or a culture that we are going to carry down the line and then keep giving as if we are giving properties. In India, it's very common to give properties as hereditary, right? So it's not something like
mm-hmm.
that. Yes, it plays a role, but we have every capacity in us to be able to not allow it to impact us,
Mm-hmm.
or if it has impacted us, to see how we could reverse it.
Okay. Okay. I like where this is going. Okay. Okay, so should we start then talking about what are some of these natural ways then to reverse some of these hormonal imbalances and some of these symptoms, the night sweats, the weight gain, which is a big part of this as well. Well, for me it is, so it's a big part.
Yes, yes.
How do we do that then? What are some of the practices that you use?
Brilliant, beautiful question, Sonia. I think this is a worldwide problem, honestly, with especially with every woman we speak. Weight at some point in time, she would have had an issue, right? So I know you also asked about, before I get into this, you also asked about if medication is the only
Mm,
way with respect to your night sweats and other things that you have gone through. See, I'm not here to come and tell that you should never take medication. I have taken it for 5 long years. But did I enjoy taking it? No. Did I have a choice at that point in time? No, because I wasn't aware. But I had this burning desire every single day to come out of that medication. While the entire world told me, whomever I spoke to, that once on thyroid medication, always on it. So that used to bug me so much. I'm like, okay, fine. That is what the world says. Let me see how I can come out of it. So that is the quest that I used to have for years together. Sorry. And while I said I identified what was the trigger for me, and I went when I worked with it, I think it's the same with any ailment per se, any hormonal imbalance per se that a woman goes through. I'm being very particular about women, and that's the place that I work with. And I'm saying this because, I mean, it's also possible with men. But why I'm saying women is because the multiple hats we wear, the multiple responsibilities we cater to, and multiple things that we do even on an ongoing day in and day out basis, right? That's why we are more prone than men, and hence my talk is mostly about women centric. Yes, these are the things that even men could apply. Men have applied and seen shifts. Like in my family, my husband has done certain things and has seen shifts, but it's more so women per se, given that we are like that by nature. Now,
Right.
with your medication and all that you're taking, it's excellent that you have seen the GP, you have been advised of medication. However, unfortunately, it has probably not supported you in your way of healing, if that's the right word to use. So if I'm allowed to say, it is very important to identify, yes, hot sweats are common, hot flashes are common, night sweats are common, but it's also possible through the natural methods, which we are getting into now, into the topic of what it is that you could do, of how we could allow our body to be in a state of consciousness where we know that this is happening with me, I understand, I agree, and how is it that I can work through it. And one of the ways to continue with your next question of, Sonia, of how is it, what are the natural ways that we could do? Oh, our body is brilliant with the natural, with what we are given as humans. Being a human by itself is brilliant because we are so much apart from other living beings that exist. And I would say it's a boon and a ban too. Meaning we have probably used less potential for us for our benefit, and have used it to confuse ourselves of what is it that we could do, how we could do, etc. Yes. So going back to the topic of natural methods, the simple techniques, I think that most of us are aware for night sweats, especially the breathing technique that we could use would allow the body to cool down. In yoga, there is a particular breathing technique. It's called Sitali breathing, wherein you use your nose to breathe in and then probably twist your tongue, something like this, and then breathe out through it. It allows your body to cool down immediately.
Okay. What is this called
Yes.
again?
Shitali technique. I'm more than happy to share the link with you, probably through the
Yes.
email. Yeah,
Yes,
that would
would
be
be
good
great.
for us to share it with the rest of the audience too. Probably not being
Yes.
able to find the right one, right? So
Absolutely. Okay.
this
Wow. Okay.
instantly allows the body to cool down. So
Okay.
when the body cools down, you start to feel good. What happens when there are night sweats or hot flashes? Your body is kind of, there is
Yes.
blood rushing, you start to feel
Yes.
hot, you sweat, you start to
Yes.
feel hands get cold, you start to feel anxious. When you use this breathing technique, your body completely cools down.
Oh, I can't wait to use that. Awesome.
Yes.
I can't
So
wait
that's
to get
one
that.
for something that I said. Now, going back to, if it is as something in the lines of thyroid, diabetes, PCOD, PCOS, again, it goes to what is it that the person has been identified with, especially with PCOD, PCOS, diabetes. It has a lot to do with the womb space that a woman carries.
Okay.
Now, I know there might be women who might have had hysterectomy and the womb doesn't exist. The space exists.
Right.
When that space exists, that creative energy exists. When that creative energy exists, we can do magic around it, activating that energy over there, and then grounding ourselves, and then, easing ourselves of the symptoms from PCOD, PCOS, diabetes, etc. For the throat, especially, which if it is thyroid, it has to do a lot with the butterfly gland over here. So for this one especially, it also means we are not voicing our thoughts as much as we should. We are stopping ourselves from saying things. We want to say it, but we are holding ourselves back for several reasons. That's one. Two, in terms of working with the throat, as one of the resources that I'm providing, there is throat activation, that guided meditation or guided practice. It's called the Journey of Consciousness to Throat Thyroid Activation. So that has helped me, in fact, in 21 days to reverse my symptoms.
Wow. That's
And that has
amazing.
helped hundreds of other women. So I would love for our community to be able to make the best of it. So if I have to simplify what I said, one, understand why it has come. So
Mm-hmm.
go back to the root cause, even if it means it's a decade, go back to the root cause and understanding why it got manifested.
Mm-hmm.
As you understand, unlayer it. See if those emotions have all been let go of, which is not. And that's why it
Mm.
has turned out to be what it is. So how working on letting it go is very important. There is a modality which I will talk about. So
Mm-hmm.
once you let go of, you use these things again, like the journey
Mm-hmm.
of consciousness to thyroid or
Mm-hmm.
the womb activation, to
Mm-hmm.
work from deep within.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do not forget, we are still on those medications. We are not letting
Right.
it go,
Yes.
right? So
Right.
when we work through it, we are going to see a huge difference in how we feel. And when
Mm-hmm.
we feel good, we are going to go to our GP and say, I'm actually feeling a lot better. Can we do something with the dosage? Can we start to reduce it? And
Mm-hmm.
that's how I came off from a 50 microgram thyroxine to
Mm-hmm.
37.5, 25 to alternate days, and then stopped it for 3 months and then let it go. It's been close to 3 years now. Yes, three
Oh,
years that I have
wow.
stopped taking
Mm-hmm.
the medication.
Okay, so when you do these things, the activation and the meditation, and you let go of it, do you have to continue doing those things, those meditations and activations after you've gotten off the medication, or is it kind of considered kind of healed at this point?
Again, a brilliant question. If I have to answer strategically, I would put it in terms of do we have to brush every single day twice just
Mm,
because we go to the dentist 6 months later and then he says, oh, you have fantastic gums and tooth. Can we
mm-hmm,
stop for at least a month and then start brushing? I don't think so.
okay.
Right. So likewise, that's just with the teeth. That's with the, how clean we have to keep, etc., etc. In
Mm-hmm,
terms of the general well-being per se. Now we are
mm-hmm,
talking about something very deep in our soul,
mm-hmm,
right? Even though it is healed with what we go through on a day-to-day basis, that part of the body is already susceptible
mm-hmm,
to
mm-hmm.
unwanted emotions, or rather it's
Okay.
wanted emotions but going and sitting in as unwanted emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay.
So if we are not working through it
Yes.
on a day in and day out, it would
Mm-hmm.
be waiting for, okay, I'm ready. Now come and attack me. And
Mm-hmm.
we end up being in the same place where we were.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So that's maintenance basically to keep it in
Yes.
tip-top
Yes.
condition.
Yes.
Okay. So the activation then for the womb, what is that? Is that also a meditation, or what is that? Is it kind of like an energy healing through meditation? Can you share a little bit more about that?
100%. That's also available as part of the resource that I would be lovingly sharing with the community. So I call it as the journeys of consciousness because meditations has been so overrated that people dread sitting into
Mm-hmm.
meditations since our brain runs off with hundreds and thousands of thought. So it's more of the journey to consciousness. Now, what would that mean? It is another huge topic that I would be opening up, but I will keep it as crisp as possible. As a human being, consciousness, the levels of consciousness that we put ourselves into are to me consciousness, by me consciousness. These are the two consciousness that we put ourselves into. What does that mean? When something happens, oh my God, this happens to me only. Every
Mm-hmm.
time when I want to do something, this happens to me. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know why am I the victim? Me. So it's the victim mode that we unknowingly put ourselves into. And unknowingly putting ourselves into will become a habit where we knowingly also start saying certain things. Right? So that's first level. Second is by me. Like how I did when my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, that, oh no, I will shoulder all the responsibility. It's by me. I have to take care of her. I'm the elder one in the family. I will do this. I will do that. No, I don't need support. I'm all good by myself. You see, we tend to put ourselves in a place of where
Mm-hmm.
I can bear the burden of the entire world.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So these are the two major conscious levels that we put ourselves into, versus there are other two too, which is the as me and through me and as me consciousness. Now, as me consciousness is the highest level in the triangle of a triangle that the diagram that it is, where only probably 3% of the entire population is. And that's the place where all the spiritual leaders who have been in the spiritual practice for ages together, sages, spiritual leaders are over there, where they know as an entire consciousness, the globe as an entire consciousness, as an entire energy, things will happen. The through me is the place where I consciously make an effort to step into, meaning that things will happen through me. Right? Why it's a beautiful balance that needs to be maintained with the feminine and the masculine energy, where we put in the efforts. Now, we just can't be sitting and saying that things will happen through me. We put in the minimal efforts needed, and we allow that things to work in our favor. Just like sowing a seed and then probably nurturing it in a way that it needs to be nurtured. We just cannot leave the seed and then say one day that will become a tree and I'll get the fruits. We have to do minimal work like nurturing it, plowing it, getting the weeds off. And then the love that we shower will allow it to become a tree and the fruits of it come. Right? So that is how we will have to allow ourselves to be in the through me consciousness. It's not easy, given that for ages we have been in these two levels of consciousness. But when we get into that level of consciousness, what happens is, and that's where the journey of consciousness comes from, where the womb meditation practice or womb activation practice that we are referring to, it takes us to the internal chakras. Cleansing the internal chakras allows us to go into our own consciousness. And then where the womb space is, which is 2 inches above the pelvic, we start to work on activating it through a guided journey. So it's not a meditation where you have to sit for hours together. Each of the practices that I have are between 7 to 11 or 13 minutes. That's it. And that, when consistently followed, will allow the person to shift from the to me to the by me to the through me consciousness. So, and then the physical changes are something apparent.
Oh, wow. Okay. This is very interesting. So these resources, so how does somebody work with you then to access these resources? Or is this something that they need to work with you directly, or they can be, received through your website? How does that happen?
Thank you so much again for asking. So I would lovingly share a training link. I personally believe that, like I said, I go back to saying it's important for us to educate ourselves and create awareness. So even before somebody would love to work with me, I would want them to know why they would want to work. It's we have done so many programs in the past with different things. I'm sure you would agree that, you would either you or your friends would have done different dietary patterns, different exercise routines, anticipating it would bring shifts. Yes, it would bring shifts, but it would bring shifts in the superficial layer. When will we allow ourselves to go into that iceberg, which is sitting underneath the water, to identify what is the potential lying over there and then rise above, right? So with the link that I would be providing, there are a couple of trainings that the women will have to go through. Again, short ones, because I don't like having things long. We are all crunched off time, or we tell ourselves that we are crunched off time. So there are short trainings that are available, which will allow anyone to understand why a keto, paleo, any diet only works for the superficial layer. But when we allow ourselves to work from deep within, what are the shifts that we can see? So I have supported the training with certain resources, especially for women who have thyroid issues, Hashimoto's, Graves', womb, PCOD, PCOS, diabetes, to activate their womb and the throat chakras, which with the training, with the resources, and I have my ebook as well as free download in it, which I have written and self-published last year, and have also received award for it on the 5th of August for transforming 788 lives.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you so much, Sonia. All of that is available as part of the link that I would be providing. And it's my earnest desire that women allow themselves to self-educate. So these are all the ones which will create awareness, allow you to educate on, okay, why it is important to work deep within. And then there is an option to book in a call with me, wherein I will be walking through. It also explains what my 87 days program is about. Everything is pretty transparent. I want women to be fully ready when they step into my zone. So it also speaks about what is the 87 days program that I cater to, how they will work through different areas of life, and what are the shifts that they would be seeing. And once they know that, okay, I am getting into this, when they get onto the call with me, it's an opportunity for them to ask questions. And once those questions are answered, we see if we are a good fit to work with each other. And then we get into the 87 days program.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much. So the link will have these activations, or the link is the informational knowledge piece of it.
The link will have everything. The link, once you get into use the link, it will allow you to it will take you to the training, which is a short one, and then it's a flow. I spoke about the through me, so the link by itself is a flow which will take step by step. First the short training, and then speaking about why it is important to focus deep within rather than superficial. And then the next page will speak about the resources that can be utilized to see shifts, my book, etc., and the option to book in a call, and end with a thank you page for being there.
Thank you so much for your generous offer. I really appreciate it. I'll definitely link that in the show notes. I think that'll be a really great resource to have. So I appreciate that. And then okay, so we live in a 3D world, and we always want to see things and know how quickly is something going to work. So when we start talking about those things, I know you've already talked a little bit about how quickly you got yourself off of thyroid. What is usually the types of results that you see when somebody works with you in this way, in terms of being able to manage their symptoms, or balance their hormones, or reverse their thyroid issues? What does that look like, if you can speak to us a little bit about that?
Sure. I have had, yes, my story. I think I bring in my experience, my life experience of how it took me 5 years to understand why I have got thyroid, and then how I was able to reverse it in the short span of 21 days. Now, with the 87 days program, why 87? That's the timeline it takes for us to potentially medically see shifts in our body. While we start seeing in week 1, week 2, we start observing by ourselves. But if the medical reports have to be considered with the TSH for thyroid and with the HbA1c for diabetes, then it takes that long, because it's an average for HbA1c, and for TSH, it's good to do every 3 months, right? So that's the reason it's an 87 days program. So now with 87 days program, the potential shifts that women have seen, I'm very excited to share this, is weight loss. Yes, 100%. In fact, I use the word weight release. When you read my book, you would know how I call it as release, because we are releasing it out of our body. Something that we lose, we gain. But when we release it out of our body, in terms of emotions, right? In terms of emotions, we no longer attract it, right? So, but for the understanding of general public, if it is the weight loss that we are talking about, there are women who have dropped up to, I know I'll have to use LBs, but let me give it a go. So 17 kgs, which is approximately 37 to 40 LBs.
Yes.
Approximately.
Wow. In the 87 days.
In 87 days.
Wow.
Yes. Now, that according to me is a fringe benefit if the person is actually having a thyroid, diabetes, or a PCOD, PCOS issues, right? For women who have had diabetes, they have brought their 3-month average HbA1c from 10.3 to 5.0 in 3 months. With thyroid, there was one particular lady who was seeing a specialist. Her thyroid numbers were at 117, alarming number. She was able to bring it to 0.86 in 87 days.
Oh, wow.
Mind you, she was taking those medications through the 87 days. It's after she brought it to that level that she has spoken to her specialist, and then they reduced the dosage, and slowly she's on the path of coming off it. Likewise, there was a woman who actually, she was diagnosed with thyroid in her second pregnancy, like how I was, and she went off the medications in 87 days.
Wow, that's
So
amazing. So what does that do? What does that do if you don't mind me asking for like say women that who have had their thyroid removed? And I think we're probably talking about the same thing that you talked about earlier for like the women who have had their
uterus
uteruses
removed.
removed, the energy is still there. So what does that look like? Because they still have to take medication as well, right?
Yes. So I will again and again, speak about, or, why it is important to be on medication, because it will allow, one, it is a mental satisfaction that
Mm-hmm.
we have with the doc when we visit the doctors and start taking it.
Mm-hmm.
So it is important for us to stay on it, but working alongside with it, working on the natural holistic sides, working on the energetic chakras, working on activating it, will bring the dosage down.
Mm-hmm.
More importantly, it will allow the individual to start feeling good, because
Mm-hmm.
these medications, they are synthetic drugs. They will
Mm-hmm.
have their own side effects too,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes, yes.
When our body has the ability to be able to heal by itself, having them is good, because that's where we are as human
Mm-hmm.
consciousness. But
Mm-hmm.
working within ourselves will allow us to work hand in hand. And there will be a time when you would be like, I think I can go down this dose. And you would know
Mm-hmm.
it intuitively. I can
Mm-hmm.
articulate to the GP, we
Mm-hmm.
can bring this down. We can probably
Mm-hmm.
try going off it for a week. I'll continue to be doing what I'm doing as a natural holistic process, and then go off it too.
Mm-hmm. Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Oh
And
wow.
under medical supervision.
Oh yes, of course, of
Yeah.
course. Wow, that's amazing. Wow. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we like say goodbye here? What is there anything else you'd like to tell the audience?
I always end my podcast or any speaking event that I'm doing with only one statement, Sonia. And I think, it comes from the mission with which I'm working. So I'm working on this mission of every woman deserves to live a life medication free, so that she can do more for herself and her loved ones.
Mm,
And with that mission in mind, I would love to end it with, if there is no health, it does not matter how much of anything
mm.
else an individual has.
Yes. Oh, I felt that. Yes,
Right.
you're right.
So, yes, as
If you
women, it
have
is important we prioritize our health. As women, it is important we prioritize who we are, how we have the ability to be able to work within ourselves, to be able to feel ease, to be able to feel good, to be able to ground it, to be able to
Mhm,
be who we truly are.
mhm,
So,
yes.
make ourselves a priority. And truly, if there is no health, it does not matter how much of
Yes.
anything else we have.
Oh, 100%. I don't know a better way to end this conversation here today, Permina. Thank you so much. I'm inspired. I'm excited to see the possibilities of how that could be possible for me to be able to get off thyroid medication. That would be amazing. I think I've been on it for 20 years.
I would love to support. Let me know if there is anything that I could do. More than happy to support.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Permina, for being here today. I will link where can people find you?
They can find. Would you like me to? That they can find me on my website as well. I know you would link the
Hmm.
particular link that I have given, but
Hmm.
otherwise, I'm available on Insta, LinkedIn. Those are the places that I would love for women to follow, because there are several things I and my team do to educate, to create that awareness
Hmm.
about
Perfect.
different foods, about different things that we can do in our day-to-day life. So I'm happy to share those handles as well, Insta handles and LinkedIn profile, for
Okay,
them to
great.
follow. But otherwise, my website would be https colon / Poornima Vamsi, which is POORNIMAVAMSI.com. Yeah, that's
Perfect.
my website.
Perfect.
So
Perfect.
that's where they can find everything about what I do. And the link, I would love for you to share the other link
Yes.
which we have spoken about, because it takes
Perfect.
them to the training and the resources,
Yes.
which is the peri.poornimavamsi.com/opt-in.
Yes, I have that right here. I'll be sure to link it. I know I've already gone and registered and started to access the videos. And so I will definitely link that. Great resource. Thank you so much once again for your generosity, for your time, for your
My pleasure.
knowledge. And I really, really appreciate you. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
deeply honored to be over here, deeply honored to be able to support everyone who truly wants to bring in that shift. Thank you so much for having me, Sonia.
You're very welcome. Thank you for joining this conversation. I hope you're feeling empowered after listening to this. All the links to find Poornima are in the show notes, to her website, to her Instagram, and most importantly, the link with all the training and the resources and the free ebook that she mentioned. I think we owe it to ourselves to look into this and see what can we really do for ourselves naturally. Personally, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to jump on board. I would love to be able to report back and say that I was able to get off thyroid medication after 20 years. So thank you so much for being here. I'll see you next week.